All right, this morning we're going to start Unit 5, and we're going to focus on naming polynomials by degree and number of terms, and we're also going to add and subtract polynomials. So for my very beginning here, we just have a definition. A monomial, it's an expression that's either a real number, and forgive me if this looks bad, I'm just going to use the little inking feature here. So it could be something like 4, a variable could be something like x, or the product of real numbers and variables. I'm just making this up. Something maybe 3x squared. Sorry, that looks really bad. It's going to be what we call a term or a monomial. All right, a polynomial is just a monomial or the sum of monomials. So you guys can see in my example here, just says p of x to represent polynomial. You've got 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus 2x plus 5. This is a polynomial. Each one of these different colors here, this is a term. The 2x cubed, negative 5x squared, negative 2x, and 5. Each one is a term. And then you guys can see what we call the leading coefficient is 2 here. That is the coefficient of the highest power of x. This is a cubic term, x to the third, quadratic term, x squared. Linear term is your plain x, and your constant is the number on the end. And this is written in what we call standard form, where the highest power of x is first, and then the powers of x go down in order as they appear in the polynomial. All right, so right now we're just going to go through and fill in this chart on how we're going to name things. The degree, this is just the highest power of the variable. So I'm going to start with just a plain number, just 10. This is a constant. The degree would be 0. Let me grab my pen here. Okay, the name using the degree is going to be constant. Okay, guys, I'm going to type this because my handwriting was looking bad with that. So this is called a constant. The number of terms, there's one term here, and the number using the number of terms, since I only have one term, this is what we call a monomial. Okay, let me go into the second column here. What I've got going on, 2x and 9 here, there's two terms, and the highest power of x there is just 1, so this would be a first degree polynomial. The name using the degree is going to be linear, and the number of terms here we have are 2. The 2x is a term, the 9 is a term. The name using the number of terms is going to be what we call a binomial. So this would be called a linear binomial. Degree here, highest power of x is 2. It's an x squared. This is called quadratic, if I can spell. And I have 3 terms here. The 4x squared is a term, the 3x is a term, the 2 is a term, and this is called a trinomial. All right, the next one down here, sorry, these got spaced out a little bit weird. The highest power of x here is 3, and this is called cubic. There's 4 terms in this polynomial. 9x cubed is 1, negative 5x squared, the 2x, and the negative 1. Now, beyond 3 terms, we don't have a special name for this, so this would just be called a cubic polynomial of 4 terms, since I have 4 terms there. If I had 5, that number would be replaced with 5. We're only going to have you guys worry about the names up to 3 terms. All right, 5x to the 4th, that's just actually just one term there, so sorry, that's not the degree. The degree would be 4th degree. And this is called quartic. And I remember that like 4 quarters in a dollar, so quartic is a 4th power. Number of terms are just 1, so then we're back to using the word monomial. So this would be called a quartic monomial. And then the last guy here, the highest power of x is the degree, that's your 5. And this is called quintic. And there's more names going up from here, but this is where we're going to stop. This has 3 terms, the negative 3x to the 5th, the 6x, and the negative 10. So this guy would be a quintic trinomial. Okay, for example 1, just to classify the polynomial, first thing the question says is write the polynomial in standard form. So I'm just going to go ahead and type this out here. The x would need to come first, and the 9 would need to come second there, because we want your highest power of x first. And then this guy would be called a linear, because we just have an x, and binomial, because if I can spell, we have 2 terms. Okay, forgive me guys, I'm trying to do this on the computer. This question, the very first term would need to be the highest power of x, so that's going to be the term on the end where you have the negative 3x to the fourth. So negative 3x to the fourth would need to be moved to the first position. Then we would have the x cubed, that's the second power of x in order here, and then negative 2x squared would be the last term. So that's in standard form there. Okay, now highest power of x is fourth, so this would be called quartic. We have 3 terms, trinomial here. Oh my goodness, sorry, I can't spell. Alright, and then the final question down here, let me see if I can write this in standard form. I need my highest power of x first. And so we didn't do the negative 6x squared. You got to take the sign in front of the term. Plus 4x, and then plus 7. And in this one, the highest power of x is the 2, so that's called quadratic. And I've got 3 terms, so quadratic trinomial for that one. Alright, we're going to do some math in this example. We're still classifying. We're going to start by writing in standard form. So for this guy right here, let me just simplify. We got 16x, and then minus 3 times 9x would be 27x. And for those 2 terms, we can combine like terms. So 16 minus 29 is going to give us negative 11x. And then that would be our standard form. And then all I'm going to do is name that. The highest power of x there is just 1, so this is first degree, and that's just a linear. And since we only have a single term, this is called a monomial. Alright, over here in part E, keep moving stuff around here. We're going to do a little distributive property here. So 5x times 2x squared is going to give you 10x to the third. Multiply the numbers and add the exponents on the variables that are the same. 5x times negative 7x is going to give you negative 35x squared. And 5x times negative 8 is going to give you negative 40x. So that would be the standard form of that guy. And your highest power is 3. So this is cubic, and there are 3 terms there. Trinomial would be the name. Oh my goodness. And my very last question, I'm going to go ahead and distribute the negative 6x. So that first term would become negative 6x times 3x is negative 18x. And then squared. Okay, now negative 6x times 2x to the fourth. It's going to become negative, and we're going to have 12x to the fifth. Now, technically, what I have written there is wrong because it's not in standard form, so we got to switch these guys up. So the standard form would put the negative 12x to the fifth first, and then minus the 18x squared. So the standard form, this would be my standard form for the question. And then in terms of the name here, the highest power of x is 5. So the 5th degree, which is called quintic, and I have 2 terms, so binomial. Okay guys, the last thing we're going to do is just add and subtract polynomials, and this is just combining like terms. If I was in class in front of you, I would probably have done something where I would copy this guy right here and write it underneath this guy right here, and my computer is not going to cooperate with me. But when I add polynomials, I actually like to line them up so I can just combine the like terms. If it's just an addition problem, you're just solely combining like terms, so you don't need to do that. But what I want to do is add together the terms that have the same exponent on x. So if you guys are looking at this, I've got a 3x squared, and down here I've got a 10x squared. So to go ahead and combine that, whoa, we want to go, sorry guys, that would be 13x squared there. Alright, now, in terms of your second term, negative 10x here, negative 4x here, so total would be negative 14x. And then for plain numbers, I've got 5 and a negative 11, so that would combine to give me a negative 6. If you want to go ahead and give that a name, that's a second degree, which is called quadratic. Highest power of x is 2, and there's 3 terms there, so it'd be quadratic trinomial. I need spelling lessons today. Alright, now this guy here, I'm going to go ahead and just copy the first polynomial, the 8x squared plus 6x minus 3, and then I'm going to do a little distributive property. So you guys are probably not going to see this real well here. So I'm going to distribute that 2x there. And let me go back so I can type it and it looks a little nicer. So down there, 2x times 5x squared, this is going to give me a plus 10x to the third. 2x times that negative 3x is going to give you negative 6x squared. And finally, the 2x times that negative 3 is just going to give us a negative 6x. Okay, now from here, we're going to go ahead and combine like terms. So I actually have a 10x to the third, so that term needs to go first. In terms of my x squareds, I've got an 8x squared here, and then I've got a negative 6x squared here. So combine those two should give us, let's see, plus 2x squareds. And now, this is a little tricky. I have a positive 6x, but down here I have a negative 6x. So we won't have a linear term. Those guys are going to cancel each other out. So the positive here and the negative, both of those are 6x. One's positive, one's negative. They'll cancel each other out. And so back down here, all we're left with is that negative 3. And that would be our answer in standard form. That guy's going to be called a cubic. Highest power of x there is 3, and we actually have 3 terms again, so cubic trinomial, if you want to give that a name. Okay, now, last thing we're going to do here, subtraction questions. So what I would really make sure you guys do, when you guys are looking at a subtraction question, and I know I've said this before in class, you have to subtract each of the terms of the polynomial. So I want to think about this as distributing a negative 1 to each of the terms that I'm subtracting in that polynomial. So I'm just going to retype what you have as your first polynomial here, which is just the 9x squared minus 5x plus 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and distribute that negative. So the rest of that would become minus 3x squared. Then it would become plus 5x because I'm going to do minus a negative. And then negative 1 times 10, I'll turn that last term into a negative 10. From there, you want to combine your like terms. My x squareds, I've got 9 here, negative 3 here, so 6x squareds. Negative 5x, these actually cancel out like they did in that last question because I've got a negative 5x here and a positive 5x here, so there won't be a linear term. And then all we got left is our plain numbers. I've got a positive 2 and a negative 10, so that's going to simplify to negative 8. Don't do anything else there. I know both of those numbers are divisible by 2, but you don't need to do any factoring here. We're just subtracting, so we're going to go ahead and leave it in standard form. And the name for this, the highest power is 2, so this is a second degree, so a quadratic. I only have 2 terms left here, so binomial. And one more here and we're done, just another subtraction question. And so what I want to do here, again, be real careful, you distribute the negative, but this one's a little trickier because we're going to actually, sorry, those arrows look awful. We're going to distribute a negative 7x squared when we do this. So Let me grab this over here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy our first polynomial. Just drop those parentheses, nothing in front of them. It's already in standard form. And okay, now I'm going to distribute this. So negative 7x squared times 2x squared is going to turn into negative 14x to the fourth. And then negative 7x squared times negative 3 is going to turn into plus 21x squared. Okay, now in my next step, all I'm going to do is combine some like terms here. So we have a 6x to the fourth minus 14x to the fourth. So that would simplify to be negative 8x to the fourth. I don't have any terms that are cubed, so no third power, so no term there. I do have 4x squared and 21x squared, so I can put those guys together. 4 and 21 is going to give you 25x squared. And I just have left here just this one number, negative 1, nothing to combine that with. So simplified version there, negative 8x to the fourth plus 25x squared minus 1. This would be called quartic, because our highest power of x is 4. It's a fourth degree is the quartic name. And trinomial, because we have 3 terms.